Greetings, Flameborn. We are gathered here today at the church at Woodguard to celebrate the Rake, a vastly misunderstood tool. It's actually quite powerful. Let's take a look. The game bills the Rake as a decent tool to level hilly ground. I would argue it's an extremely good tool for that. We're going to talk about the two basic functions of the Rake before we get into two hidden features that make it very powerful. As you can see, the terrain here is quite messy. As we move the camera around, we can see that these two blue concentric circles adjust to the altitude. Once we select an altitude that we desire to level the terrain to, we click and hold left click. From there, we can see as we move the camera around, the altitude of the blue circles is locked in. This can often be quick to do, but once again, we chose sort of a messy spot, and the more adjustment that is required, the longer you may need to hold the button. We're also free to move the player. So I've been holding the entire time, and the height of the blue circles has remained consistent. And as we'll see in just a moment, the Rake is actually capable of adjusting the altitude quite a bit. Good morning, Embervale. All right, that is function number one. For function number two, we come to the sheer face. Let's say that we desire to make this a more gradual slope. As can be seen in the lower right-hand corner, if we hold the R key and then scroll the mouse wheel, we adjust the angle at which we see our blue concentric circles. So if we wanted this to be a more gradual slope, we would set the desired angle. Once again, click and hold. We're locked in, we're free to move the character, free to move the camera. And we just reduce that sheer face to a gradual slope. Those are what I would call the two standard functions of the Rake. Now, why is this tool overpowered? Let's get into it. You can see in my inventory, I have one of each of three special terrain types. There's farm soil, which increases the growing speed of plants. Dirt road block, which reduces stamina consumption while sprinting. And flower soil, which is pretty. All three of these terrain types can be found here at Woodguard. We can see farm soil right there, dirt road right there, and flower soil right over there. One needs to simply swing the pickaxe a couple times, and some will end up in your inventory. Now, if we pull out our hammer and go to the terrain tool, we can see on the right, we're able to select these types of terrain. So we're going to spend our one flower soil to place some pretty flowers here. If we then switch back to our Rake, lock in the altitude, we're also locking in the terrain type. So despite the fact that we have 0 flower soil in our inventory, we're able to spread the peace and love here. Now, when we place the terrain block, we increase the altitude here. And from that high altitude, we copied the high altitude everywhere we spread the flowers. We also copied the terrain type from a high altitude to a low altitude relatively. If we then go back down to the lower altitude, click and hold to grab that, we can see that we do not copy the terrain type, but rather only the altitude. So the terrain type remains how we had it, with the pretty flowers here. But we just lowered it back to our leveled altitude here. If we once again pull out our hammer and select the dirt road block, we can do things similarly. spread the roads far and wide. You can see in the upper left-hand corner, I have the on the road buff. And if we look at the character screen, status details, we can see that this reduces stamina consumption while sprinting. So that is element 1 of how the Rake is, quote, overpowered. Before we talk about the last powerful feature of the Rake, I hope I can count on you to spread the gospel of the Rake by clicking the like button. Also, on this channel, we do lots of Valheim speedruns, Valheim permadeath playthroughs, and recently we've been streaming Enshrouded with a focus on combat and progression. Hopefully with some occasional humor as well. Give me your bus money. Consider dropping a sub. Alright, and lastly, we pull out the hammer, place some farm soil. We can once again spread it free of charge with the Rake. We're spreading both the altitude and the terrain type to lower altitudes here. We only had 1 in our inventory. We're getting this free of charge. However, the last manner in which the Rake is somewhat overpowered is that if we once again pull out our pickaxe, we can just mine farm soil, and we emerge with more than when we started. And then simply click and hold with the Rake to replace it. Alright folks, there you have it. Often misunderstood tool, the Rake. Actually quite powerful. Enjoy your roads. Enjoy your pretty flowers. And enjoy your free farm soil. Thanks for watching. Take care.